Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, 3 Degrees of Love. This is your girl Alana here. So today I want to bring you a very sort of special interview with the lovely Lisa Papez of Lisa Papez, formerly Supportive Tarot. She's also the creator of Tarot with Training Wheels. She is the author of the Self-Worth Path book. And she also made a sort of companion series on her YouTube channel, Lisa Papez. And also, she's got a lot of great things. Tarot with Bootcamp. If you go onto her website, supportivetarot.com, you can totally check her out. So she's doing some really wonderful things, and of course I got the opportunity and pleasure to talk to her about her work with the book and sort of, you know, where she's at overall in her practice. And yeah, and so without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to the video. In the meantime, if you like what you see, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe the video. If you have any comments, please leave them down below. And if you want to see more of Lisa, definitely check out the description box. All of her info will be there. So with that being said, continue to live your best life. Listen, learn, live with love. Take care. Bye, guys.
Okay. What are you doing? Sorry, no, there was a menu thing that came up on my screen. So I was like, and then she's like, recording in progress. And I'm like, okay. Okay. Okay, so are we recording now? Yeah, we're recording. Okay. Well, thank you, Lisa, for joining me on my new channel, 3 Degrees of Love. Thank you for joining me here. Yeah, sorry for the double. And you know, this, oh wow, yeah. So, you know, just technology is just crazy. And but thank you for helping me. Yes. You're welcome. So, okay, so the beloved Lisa Papez, you know, formerly Supportive Tarot, but just channel name Lisa Papez. And I'm having you here to talk about your wonderful book that you wrote, the Self-Worth Path. Yay! And this book is, let me say, hands down, it's like one of the best things that I'm still in the middle of reading. And I remember actually when you were talking about, you know, like when the book first came out and you were even just coming up to it and you were talking about it. But I had already started watching you for, you know, for a couple of years already. And, you know, and you had Self-Worth Saturdays and things like that. And, you know, me sort of being the type of person, like I grew up, you know, very Christian background and things like that. But like, I started exploring more of my spirituality in more recent years and sort of trying to expand that entire world for me. And of course, you're one of the first people that I had stumbled upon. And, you know, so watching you and then seeing you, you know, just as you progressed and your channel grew and developed, and then you wrote this book. And when you started your series, Walking the Self-Worth Path, you know, and you know, sort of looking at decks and tarot and how to sort of use that in connection with the book, I was in awe of the series. And
thank you.
And it was so wonderful. And it was started, like, I was starting to see like this connection between what my goal was, my own personal sort of spiritual journey, and the whole goal behind it. And, what my profession is as a social worker, and how that sort of connected even with my own personal journey, with mental health and everything like that. And just seeing how profound the series was. And as you were talking about the book leading up to its release, and then when it released. So the day I remember when I already loved you right from before, but like when the book launched, and I remember you were reading the first, like, I guess it was like the dedication page.
Like the intro, the like letter to the reader.
Yeah, right. And
I remember too.
Yes. And I was, and you were reading it. And I honestly, and I was watching you read this thing, and the tears just started to pour, because I thought to myself, I felt like I was now in this sort of, I don't know if you want to call it bubble, universe, or whatever it is, but I was now sort of engrossed in all there was that existed at that moment was you reading, and me as like you were reading to me.
Aww.
And that I could feel, like I could just sort of feel the love and everything sort of wrapped up into it. And it, like, when I say made me cry, like it came to the point where I had to turn the TV off, and I was like, forget YouTube. It's like, I was in a way, I was pleasantly mad at you, because I was like, she made me cry, damn it. And I just turned it off, and I went to my room, and I went under the blankets, and I took it all in, and then I went to sleep, and then then I got up later and finished watching it. But I had to just tell you exactly how that made me feel. So of course I typed it. I was like, why couldn't you put a trigger warning on this?
I remember that.
That was like, that was it. So now I'm even more in love. And, and with you, and just, everything that you've brought so far with the channel and everything, and sort of where you are even to date. And yeah, so, this book is in more ways than one has like, there's a deep love there. And it's the other aspect of it is the fact that of how approachable the book is, and how it approaches the topic of self-worth from a very realistic and real life experience type of way.
Yeah.
It is, the way it's set out, in my opinion, it's set out in a very sort of, because if I'm looking back to sort of my academic experience, and especially in social work and stuff like that, the book is set up in such a way that it's not only easy to read, but like it's got that academic feel, but in a really straightforward, everyday, layman's terms kind of way, if that makes any sense what I'm saying.
I think I know what you mean. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I didn't try to approach it academically. I definitely was trying to approach it from this is just what I figured out, picked up along the way, conversations I've had with Peggy, like the things that have like helped me grow the most on this path. Those are the things I wanted to share. So it wasn't, I felt like it would be like, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but I kind of felt like I needed to get it out of me, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I think that was actually the biggest part. The thing I was the most nervous about was the fact that I didn't feel like I was coming at this from a place of book learning. You know what I mean? Like I was coming at this very much from a place of like raw on the street, like going through it myself kind of perspective. So yeah.
And I really like that, because it also sort of gives that thing of, here it's like a best friend who's just telling you, these are my experiences, this is what I went through, and why I think it's important to to share, and how I I can help you. It's very from that sort of best friend perspective, not like someone who is like a parent or, you know, someone who's in authority sort of talking down to you to say, oh no, well, this is the way you need to do it. No, this is the way that I did it, and this is how it worked for me. And, you know, I hope that it will work, that, you know, these methods will work for you too. You know, if you're willing to accept that and take from it what you will and use it to your, you know, to your advantage. And that's, I think that's like one of the biggest, most important things when it comes to anything that you know, where you're sort of now on the premise of self-help and, you know, self-practice and things like that, and development. It's important to approach things from that perspective, and not a very, you know, look at me, you know, type of way, right? I'm better than you, so listen to me type of way. No, you know, and it's just, it's like I remember you were even talking about how sort of spiritually related it is. Like, it comes from this, like as you mentioned, even in the series, like the book is laid out by using the major arcana, right?
Yeah.
In tarot, right? And as I've sort of developed the love for tarot too, and seeing the ways in which I can use tarot to my advantage in my healing and my growth and stuff like that, rather than fearing tarot the way that, you know, growing up, you know, in Christian culture, you know, tarot is, oh, that's that devil's work and things like that. You know, there's definitely this sort of persona that the way you presented it, and many now tarot readers today, it's more from, no, it's a spiritual sort of self-help growth kind of system, as opposed to something that is evil that you're looking to use for, you know, selfish gain, or even, you know, to hurt somebody else. No, this is about empowerment. And
I think tarot could be approached, it's a tool, right? Like, so you could approach
right,
it.
Exactly.
It's the intention of the user, right? Like, it's like anything else. It's just how you choose to work with it that matters. That determines how it's going to play out for you.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So how did you, okay, first off, how did you come up with the idea for this book anyways? Like, that you just one day woke up and said, I'm gonna write a book?
No, I think so. The book was in me long before I came onto TarotTube or had any connection with this community at all. The book has been, how do I say this right? So everything I've been doing in my life, outside of like the thing I do to pay my bills, which has varied throughout the years, but the thing I've been doing, like my work, my life work, if that makes any sense, has been personal development and self-worth. And when I became a yoga teacher, it was like the yoga, I was passionate about yoga, yes, but I was more passionate about using yoga as a tool to talk about self-worth, to help people meet themselves where they are, to help them recognize self-care and gentleness and self-acceptance, and like kind of learn how to connect with their body in this very non-threatening way. And I kind of learned throughout my years teaching yoga that what I was truly passionate about wasn't, well, yes, I nerd out on the actual yoga. The part that I was really passionate about was the message. And I said that all the time. I was like, if I had to give up talking about self-worth or teaching yoga, I'd give up teaching yoga, right? Like, that's the thing that sticks. And the same thing is true with tarot, with anything else I do. It's like, that's the message that is important to me. And so when I got to a certain point in my yoga teaching, I was like, I need to get this. This is what's important to me, like this message. I need to share this or find a way to put it together into some kind of cohesive way. And I wasn't sure what I was going to write in the beginning. In fact, I wrote a book before I wrote this book. By which I mean, like, I decided I was going to write some kind of a memoir or something to try to like share my personal experiences and how. So I started out basically just writing my life story, which turned into more of a personal therapeutic practice than anything that I was going to publish. But I wrote the entire thing out. I wrote like the things that I went through and like the lessons I learned and like all of that stuff. And that was probably 2 or 3 times the size of what the self-worth path ended up being. But it was like I had to purge it all first. Like I had to get it out of me. And then from there, I started to figure out where the important pieces were that I wanted to actually share. What had the biggest impact? Like what are the most helpful things that I can, and how can I make it not just about me? You know what I mean? Like I didn't want it to be, oh, here's all the things about me. I wanted it to be, here's the things that I can share that I found profoundly helpful. And here's how they also helped me. Does that make sense? So I had to kind of wrap my brain around how to approach it. And it took a long time because I had all of my own self-worth stuff to barrel through, even in the writing of it, if that makes sense. Like just to even get to the point where I could get close enough to hit publish was so many stops and starts, because I had all the imposter syndrome and all the negative self-talk and all the like, who the hell are you to do this going on? And I had to like work through all of that. I feel like I got off track. What was the question?
How did you get started? No, you're right on track.
Oh, good.
How did you get started writing the book? Right.
That was it.
Like, did you just wake up one day and be like, I'm gonna write a book? So
it was this very slow, kind of trickly, kind of organic process. It took years.
How long would you say all of that took you?
Honestly, probably I'm in the ballpark of 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it definitely wasn't like you woke up yesterday and I'm going to write a book and here it is like a few months later. Woo.
No.
So this was definitely a long, okay. So
and a lot of stops, like a lot of like, oh, it doesn't matter. I'll do that later. I'll work on that later. Like just a lot of fear, a lot of working through my own stuff about it for sure.
So, and that, you know what, and hearing you say that, it actually gives me comfort because it's like, the way that sort of where I'm in my life right now, sort of situation wise, it's like, I feel like, well, I'm almost 40, I'm 39. And, thinking back, like I went to school, I did social work and I was, and that was my goal. Right. And, to work and be a social worker and help people and things like that, and maintain a job and all of that stuff. And then, well, life didn't really work out that way. And now I'm sort of in this mode where, my marriage sort of blew up and I'm just trying to pick up the pieces of my life, so to speak. I lost my job all in the same process and things like that. So now I'm going through this spiritual journey and I still have a clear understanding on what I want to do and what I want to accomplish in this life. But the way that I had it pictured in my mind is not at all where it is at right now. And I feel like in a moment I'm at a standstill.
Yeah. But and it's hard because I think we get fixated on the how we want to accomplish a thing instead of the what. Like, this is the thing I want to do. And like letting the what evolve is really hard to do sometimes. I think we want to know what the journey is going to be. And I think sometimes it's more like just figuring out how to focus on your why and your what and worry less about the how and let that kind of evolve. I don't know if that makes any sense. I feel like it's very hard to describe.
Totally. Like like I'm saying, like, 'cause the fact that you said that, to even write this book, it took you it was such a process and it took like 8 years. So the fact that, I'm like, and I've had my moments where it's like, well, it's 5 years now. And, I haven't, what have I done with myself since my my marriage ended and and I'm having all these moments, of lostness, and if that's even a word, and just sort of where I'm at and trying to find my footing. But Rome wasn't built in a day.
No.
And so, what I'm hoping to accomplish isn't gonna happen tomorrow either. It's gonna take its time.
Yeah.
And I have to be accepting of the fact that maybe I'm where I'm supposed to be right now, and I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to be right now. It may not be all, glamorous or, or comfortable all the time, and might be difficult, but it's making its way there.
Yeah.
And that's the end goal, and is what I have to, to sort of look forward to. Like, you wanted to put this book out and you wanted to help others, but it took you quite a bit of time and you went through quite a bit of a journey. from what I'm gathering, for what you're saying, that, you know, that led you to that point.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I shouldn't be as hard on myself. Basically, I should take, you know,
Yeah,
things from your book and not be as hard on myself
it's
with
true.
it, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So yeah, you know, so that's that's comforting, and I'm hoping that, you know, that realization will be comforting, you know, for other people too, to come to their own realization to where they're at in their life, if, you know, if they're going through something similar and things like that. And
One of
of
the most
course,
important things, I think, honestly, is really truly meeting yourself exactly where you are. I think sometimes we think we need to be someplace else before we can do a thing, or before we can, you know, feel like we're successful or make progress or whatever. And I love that term. I love that idea of meeting yourself where you are. Like, where are you right now? And like meeting yourself with compassion and gentleness in that place, because
yeah,
you don't do yourself any favors if you think that you can't, like, if you can't be honest with yourself about where you're at. I think that's such an important thing. It's like being able to actually say, no, this is where I am. Like, yeah, I have this trigger, or yes, I have this this thing I have to navigate that feels like baggage, and like I've got this healing I have to do. Yeah, all of that is true. I'm not doing myself any favors if I pretend I'm doing better than I am, or if I pretend that I'm further along on the path than I am. So like meeting myself exactly where I am often looks like recognizing that things aren't perfect. Like, these are the things I'm maybe not happy with, but then here's how I can just put one foot in front of the other in this moment, exactly as I am today, not like my fantasy self or how I want myself to be. And that's so helpful. And like learning how
yeah.
to be kind to yourself is just that self honesty of like, no, actually, I'm a little screwed up today. Like, oh no, actually, I'm kind of hating myself today. Like, let me acknowledge that, be honest about it, and then go from there, you know? And it gives you a jumping off point.
And that's a really good point. Like, it's I was gonna say it's like at the beginning of the book, but technically it's actually the beginning of the book, because it's not even really part of the chapter. It's
No.
like in the apex, or whatever you want to call it, at the beginning of the book. So,
Yeah.
you know, and it's literally that: meet yourself exactly where you are, like where you are, you know. And you said it perfectly. And it's like, and that's why, like, again, like, when I talk about my love for this book, right? Like, just even as we're discussing it, like, you're bringing up all the points that are like, well, yeah, this is why I love the book, because it's like, this is exactly what we're talking about. This is, you know, this is a human experience, right? And it's so amazing. And especially now, like, you know, in the global crisis that we're in with this, you know, pandemic, and we're not done. And, you know, the world's trying to move things along quickly, but it's like, you know, but
Yeah.
the past 2 years have been really hard for a lot of people. And I think, you know, when we look at the statistics, like, mental health has definitely been on the increase as a whole. And then the pandemic adding you know, like, even, you know, I hear from, you know, people who are, who are therapists and things like that. And the waiting list right now for people to get into therapy is like through the roof. Like, they're you know, oodles of waiting list, because of the fact that, you know, people are dealing with so much. And,
It's
you
a
know,
lot.
and
It's a lot. And I think
yeah,
people underestimate the impact of something like this. And also, I think, underestimate the cumulative impact of something like this, because I think it's like, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And then you hit a wall. Well, the reality is, you weren't fine. You just weren't noticing the very slow cumulative add up effect of all of the results of the lifestyle changes, the isolation, the things like, you know, I think we have jokes where we're like, oh yeah, like I'm one of them making the joke, right? Like, oh yeah, I'm an introvert. This is great. Like, my life hasn't changed hardly at all. But on the other hand, it has. And there's this kind of buildup of like fatigue and worry and anxiety and fear that I think we're all moving through right now. Even those of us who feel like pretty chill about it still have this very slow cumulative build of anxiety of what the future is going to look like. And I think before COVID, like, we all like had a general idea of what the future looked like. And I think this has turned that on its head, and that uncertainty creates so much unease kind of globally. And I also believe that there's something to be said for whenever we're going through a global or collective experience, there's ramifications of that, both good and bad, that we won't understand for years and years and years. You know what I mean? And Yeah. So it can bind us together, but it can also bind us together in some really difficult stuff. So yeah, mental health is something that I think needs an even greater focus now more than ever before.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is also too, like, as I, you know, as I continue to watch you and, you know, your channel and how you, you know, you're progressing with it and stuff like that. And just seeing other people out, you know, YouTube and doing their thing. It's, you know, it's, you're seeing a very, a much stronger connection to the idea of spirituality and mental health, and that sort of self-worth practice, right? And development as well. And you know, whereas I don't know if that's I guess a generational thing, and sort of where, you know, the world is sort of moving, you know, where the traditional sort of spirituality, you know, with religion and all of that, we're seeing a lot more people who are sort of breaking away from what was the traditional norm in these categories, and sort of breaking off into this sort of subcategory that's more of a general kind of practice, and includes, you know, teachings and workings from a variety of, you know, sort of traditional mindsets. And I kind of like that, because it's in a way, we are being a little bit more connected and sort of bringing, you know, things around, rather than, you know, keeping things sort of isolated and, you know, right.
So I think too, sometimes what's happening is we're all in this collective kind of quiet, in a way. Like the world is quieter, it's less busy, like in some ways, in other ways it's more so, but in the areas that it's like less busy and quieter, I feel like there's also a kind of common thing where a lot of us are like thirsting for knowledge. We're studying, or we're expanding our ways of thinking, and I think part of that is coming from, like, there's a bunch of people now working from home, and like there's more idleness in the world, if that makes sense. And that idleness, I think, is leading to that thirst for knowledge and wanting to dive deeper into things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So like we've covered the fact that you're an established author now. Are we going to see any more books from you?
I don't know. I definitely want to write a tarot book. That's definitely on my agenda. I would love to do that. I would love to. One of the things that really is probably my next big project where this is concerned is I really want to do a workbook version of this book that can work alongside it, with writing exercises and things like that. And I'd like to see that happen. That'll probably happen before anything else written comes out of me. But this was like my work. You know what I mean? Like, this is the piece that makes me feel like, okay, I'm good. I'm done. But I'm not done. Like, I've got more in my head, but this is my baby. this was the thing that I'm like, if as long as I do this, I'm good. And then everything else is just play after this. Does that make sense? It's like I have to get this out of me before I can do anything else. And then I can just see where life takes me. But yeah, I would love to write a tarot book. I would love to create a workbook for this deck, or for this book deck. You know, so that
it might as well be a deck. Maybe you should, you know, make a deck.
I have some ideas. We'll see.
That would be really cool. And I mean, like, you already did the companion sort of series, you know, on your channel that is connected with this book, and it is an amazing series that you did. And like I was actually watching the series before I even bought the book, you know, to be honest. And you know, and then so it was definitely a bonus, you know, to be able to watch and sort of read the book, you know, kind of hand in hand. And no word of a lie. So the series and the book is actually one of the things, besides you, has inspired me to even create this channel and to even be doing this right now, because like I said, it sort of fits with everything that I want when it, you know, talking about mental health, and, you know, and I'm seeing, you know, your approach is more from what seems to be the spiritual sort of, you know, main focus or branch that you're sort of leaping into or from. Whereas, you know, yes, I have a bit of, you know, spirituality background, but mine has, you know, sort of been more of the traditional sense. And I'm coming at from, you know, more of a professional, educational sort of understanding of mental health and social work and things like that, but also bringing it into my love of, you know, of spirituality and tarot and coming at it from that way. So it's like great minds sort of meeting in the middle from the opposite ends of the spectrum,
totally.
right?
Yeah,
So this is what I love about you, and just, you know, just the whole thing and what you stand for, and, you know, what you've put out there in the world, and that, you know, what keeps me coming back, so to speak, right? So, and not just me, like so many other great fans, like you just hit the 10,000K mark on your YouTube channel. So that is truly amazing. And you're doing such a, I've watched you grow, and I've seen, you know, how you've progressed, you know, and you're doing so many wonderful things with, you know, with the channel, like just even outside of the book. Like the book is just like, you know, it's that's our focus today, but like it's great, but you're doing so many more, you know, great and beneficial things that, you know, like I'm, you know, the fact that you started the sort of join membership, and you're bringing back Self-Worth Saturday, so to speak, and, you know, you're doing more with that, and that is so much fun and so amazing. And even just the community of people that, you know, are a part of, you know, your followers and subscribers, and, you know,
I feel really lucky
being
because
one
I
of
feel
them.
like there's just this really loving community. I feel like the channel and the membership and all that kind of thing, I feel like we've sort of built together this, and the Facebook group and everything. Like I feel like we've kind of built this very like kind, loving place, and I've become very passionate and protective of that kind, loving place, that it stays that way. It's become a sanctuary for me in more ways than I could ever possibly describe. Like having a place to go on the internet that is not like other places on the internet for me has been so crucial to my own mental health. And I've gotten so many like comments from people who that's what they appreciate, is like just having a place to go to like, get away from all the other stuff that's out in the world. Like we can go do our work out there, that really hard, intense stuff, and then we can come back to this kind of like soft, cuddly place. You know, that's what I try to be on the internet. It's just this like kind of soft, cuddly place where people can go and just kind of lay it all down for a minute and just kind of relax and enjoy the things they love and talk about what they love and be in a little place of joy. Like that's what makes it fun for me and rewarding for me.
I think the other aspect too, just to add to that, is it's because you're totally right. But like the other thing, or it's like being able to be yourself, like like the other joy part is the fact that, you know, you don't hide the fact that your inner child lives free, and, you know, and is happy-go-lucky. And that's another thing that I really connect with, because I've always felt that I've always been that way, you know, like into my, you know, adulthood, like, you know, I was still buying dolls and still enjoying dolls, and, you know, there was all these other things that, you know, it was, in a way, it kind of felt sort of, well, it's something that gives me joy, and I enjoy it, but I don't know what, you know, whether the other people are going to be judging me and stuff like that. So keeping it sort of secret, where in your group, in your world with the YouTube and, you know, the Facebook group and everything, and the Unicorn Fam and everything, I don't feel like I have to hide anything.
Don't. I think that's the thing, is I've been judged for that. Like I've had people like treat me like I'm dumb, or like I'm like, and don't get me wrong, I have my naive moments for sure. I will always be a little bit on that naive side because I love to see like the positive and everything. But I have been kind of not, I wouldn't go so far as to say bullied necessarily, but I've certainly been picked on about that. And it really kind of, I stifled it for a long time. And it's kind of fun one of the things I find the most enjoyable about YouTube is that I feel like I can just be myself, and everybody's been lovely. Like yes, you get negative crap on YouTube. It's inevitable, but the vast majority, like the vast majority of people are so accepting and loving that it just makes it extra. It just she just woke up. But yeah, like it makes, when I can let my guard down on YouTube, which I would have never imagined in a million years. I could let my guard down and like just really be myself on YouTube of all places. But that's what happened. And it just like, I think when I made the video where I started showing off all my toys and I watched it back and I was like, oh my God, am I going to actually post this? Because I literally like turned into like a 5-year-old right on camera, and I'm like, whatever, this is who I am. People can take it or leave it. It's fine. And it's been actually a really great thing for me on so many levels. And just, yeah, I feel like if you can have a space where you can actually just truly just be in your own skin and get comfy, that's so good for everybody, I feel like.
Yeah, and it really is. Like I'm telling you, like, no word of a lie, it gives me so much joy. Like my inner child squeals whenever like there's a new Lisa video, because it's like, oh yay, right? Like it's like my inner child gets to live and just like, I mean, I live at home alone by myself, so she's, you know, she's living all the time. But I mean, you know, but like the fact that it's almost like, yeah, like she's meeting up in your sandbox and she's coming to play too, and you know, and she's so excited for it, right? Because watching you embrace that side of yourself and not being afraid to share it is very empowering. I don't know if you really realize how much of a great impact that has on people, and more personally for me, it gives me such an incredible joy, and gives me a sense of comfort, because I'm coming to a place that's real. I'm coming to a place that I can be myself and express myself without judgment or fear of, you know, labeled weird or whatever the case may be. And that's really meaniful. So
I love that.
and of course you're gonna make me cry, but you know, that's the effect that you have.
But it's good. Like I don't often think about, I guess this part's normal. I don't know how to express it right. It's probably gonna come across weird, but like I regularly feel grateful and blessed to have it for myself. Do you know what I mean? I don't always think about like, and I want it to be a safe place for people, but I don't always know how successful that is. Like you can never really know because you're not in other people's experience, right? But for myself, and I think it's why I'm so protective of those spaces, because it could easily turn into something else entirely. You know what I mean? Like groups and online spaces can morph if you let them, if you're not diligent, I guess you could say, about holding on to that sort of positive, judgment-free space. So that's really important to me. And it's really rewarding to know that that's having an impact outside of myself. So thank you for sharing that. That was awesome. It's good to know that it creates that there is an impact. It's not just like me over here going, I'm having a lovely time, and I'm hoping other people are too. You know what I mean?
But I mean, but yeah, it's like I said, it brings out all the feels, but all the feels in the best way possible. Good. And like, you know, it's like, I think the other day I even posted, and I was like, because I was rewatching something, and then there was something that you did, and I'm like, yeah, that's just typical Lisa. And it was you know, and it brought the giggles, of course, because it's like I'm picturing you in the moment that you're in, and I'm still seeing it, but I'm picturing the fact that, yeah, I would probably have that exact same reaction. So I know exactly what's gonna happen from there. Yep. You know, and it's just so much fun. It's just, you know, and it's memorable because everybody remembers the time when you turned 5 on camera over the Say Yes to the Deck.
Oh, on the Fox Tarot Renard.
Yeah. Everybody remembers that. Like anybody, like you post that right now, and because just the other day someone posted about the fact that they were buying the, you know, Tarot Renard, and how, like they're giving you it's giving them the feelings of when Lisa turned 5 right on camera. Like, Yeah, right. Everybody knows that moment.
Just the fact that people now know, because this is common language in this household, right? Like we're constantly talking about how I turned 5. Like it's just like, it's like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, see? And it's kind of funny how that's translated like online too, because everybody's like, oh yeah, Lisa turned 5 in this video. And like, you wouldn't normally, like in mixed company, say, oh, this person, oh yeah, I was at work and was talking to Joe at the water cooler and he totally turned 5. People are like, what? You should be able to. That's the thing.
That should be normal.
It should be normal, but it hasn't been. So it's kind of, you know what it feels like? It feels like there's this bubble with Peggy and I where I feel super, super safe. And it's like that bubble has now expanded to the internet, which is so crazy, but I'm so happy about it. I'm so happy about it.
Yeah, it's totally amazing. Like, you know, and then so now you've introduced tarot with training wheels. You're giving tarot lessons free to the internet, and then now you're also doing that where, you know, you can pay for that, you know, Tarot Bootcamp on your website. You offer readings. Like there's the term, you're a jack of all trades, but then the rest of it is you're a master of none. But that's not true. But you are a master of everything that you seem to get yourself into. Like you wrote a book, you read tarot, you teaching tarot, you're a yoga teacher. You're like, is there anything you can't do? Like,
you know what it is?
Like, and then you're doing everything all at once. Like, it's just like bam, 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 bam. And it's like
2 things. It's like, I call myself a hobby squirrel, but there's like, I do enjoy hopping from hobby to hobby. That's something I do. I'm like, oh, shiny. And then I go do that hobby for a while. Oh, shiny. I go do that hobby. But if anything, like if I grab onto anything, if anything like really sticks, so like yoga stuck. So then once it sticks, right, whether it's tarot, yoga, or anything else, whatever sticks, I want to deep dive into. Like, perfect example, I'm working on like a cardstock video right now. It is the nerdiest thing of life, right? Like it's incredibly nerdy, and I've put hours and hours and hours into it, and I haven't even filmed a single second yet. But like, I was the same way with yoga. It's like, oh, I'm really into yoga, so now I want to learn the anatomy. I want to know how the bones work. I want to know how the muscles work. I want to know how alignment is, and I want to look at it from all these different angles. I want to teach all the kinds of yoga. So I did hatha and yin and restorative and blah, 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 blah. So like tarot's the same thing. Like when I grab onto, when something sticks, because they don't often stick. Like I have lots of hobbies that I dabble in, but when it sticks, I want to like know everything about it. I just want to deep dive into it. And I should, I guess, caveat that by saying that tarot as an example is such a vast subject that there are areas I want to deep dive into, and then areas I'm like, no, it's fine. Maybe it'll strike me someday that I want to dip into those pieces. But when it's a vast subject, you can kind of pick which things you want to nerd out on. Yeah, so that's it. But there's lots of stuff I do where it's like I'm super mediocre. I just don't want to put the effort into it. It's fun, but not enough it hasn't grabbed me the same way. You know what I mean? The tarot has been with me since I was like, 18, 19 years old. So it's always been something that's been a part of my life. And it's just the intensity of how much of my life it's taken up has varied over the years. But it's such a great time to be into tarot right now because there's just so much wonderful stuff out there and wonderful creators and like things you can study, and like it's everywhere. And when I was first learning tarot, it was so limited. You had to be in a certain kind of group of people to even learn anything about tarot or encounter it in the wild was almost unheard of, So it's a really cool time to be into tarot for sure.
So when, like, how did you find tarot, or did tarot find you? Like, how did that come about? Like, how did that start?
I was actually exploring my spirituality, and I was going to gatherings that were for like little baby witches and like pagans, and I was exploring that side of things. And my first experience with tarot was a reading given to me by a friend I'd come to know through those circles. And she said, oh, do you want me to read your cards for you? And I was like, oh, sure. So we sat there and did a reading, and she gave me this really profound reading, very predictive, very much like this is what's going to happen in your life kind of thing. And right down to some very, very specific details. And I mean, I actually recently bought the deck that she used because it's such a strong memory for me. And I just remember it literally predicted what happened in my life for the 2 to 3 years following that reading. And it had such an impact. And I just remember being really in awe of the way that she went about that. And I started going to, like, we called them divination night. So we would all get together and we would, play with oracle, or we would try tea leaf reading, or we would play with runes. It was very casual, just friends getting together. Like, instead of a movie night, we would have divination night. We'd just go and we'd play. And that was where it all began for me, was in that way, and just among friends and just kind of playing and learning. And it felt so magical to me in those early days. Like, it just felt like something that I couldn't wrap my head around, and it was confusing. And I wanted to know how it worked. Like, I wanted to, like, how you could like open a clock and see the gears? I wanted to figure out how to do that for tarot, because I couldn't understand how it worked. And I have a very I'm kind of surprisingly science minded. Like, I want to know how does it work? Why does it work? Why is it telling me stuff about me you have no right to know? Like, I don't understand, and I want to know. So that's what really sparked it for me in the very, very early days.
That's amazing. And like I said, the way that you present yourself, it's very intriguing to me, because it's like, well, can you teach me? Like, I want to learn more about this, the whole idea of it, and how you put it into practice, right? Like even just sort of going back and talking about, tarot with training wheels and tarot with boot camp, right? And I know that, now that you've done those, you're probably going to look to expand those areas, right? And I think there are a lot more people that are like me, in the sense where, okay, well, it's one thing to know all the rules and the regulations and the meanings and the things like that, but then there's that aspect of intuitive, and how to tap into that, and how to approach it from that aspect, because some people can get the book smarts down perfectly fine, and that's definitely a good way to start, and that can get you very far. But it's like, when you can now tap into the sort of and connect it, that higher sense of knowing and that sort of intuitive aspect, well, that's on a whole other thing altogether.
That's
right?
Actually,
and
when I came up with the idea to start courses, it was always clear to me from the beginning that where I wanted to take it was to an intuitive place. But to do that, because it's a very subjective experience, right? In order to go to an intuitive place, though, everybody has to have some kind of a foundation. So my goal is to move it in that direction. So Tarot with Training Wheels, I wanted to make available to everybody, so everybody's starting from the same jumping off point. And then I wanted to expand on that in Tarot Bootcamp for beginners and make it go further. And then I want to build on it from Tarot Bootcamp and like have another level, and then have another level. And the goal is to take the course in a trajectory that I don't feel like courses often go, which is a little off book, a little off road, a little left of common, a little left of what we expect from tarot courses. I think we have a great selection of tarot expertise in this world, and I think every perspective is valuable. Like, I'd be the first person to say, like, you do Tarot with Training Wheels, cool. Now go watch one of Dustin's deep dives over on Modern Metaphysique, or go watch somebody else like Benabel Wen, or somebody else who has a more meaty sort of symbolic understanding of the tarot. Like, get different perspectives, because different approaches of working with tarot are going to appeal to different people. In yoga, we used to say you'd have different kinds of students, right? You'd have the achiever, that's the person who wants to go and like sweat it out. You'd have I can't remember them all now. You have the mystic. The mystic wants to come and like hear all the like stories and mythologies and like get into that aspect. And then you'd have the I think we called it the panda bear or something, the person who wants to come and just like feel cozy and snuggled, and it's the same thing with tarot. Like, some people are going to want to get into the deep esoteric magic of it, and some people are going to want to get into the self-help kind of psychologically assistive side of it, and some people are going to want to get into the fortune telling, divination kind of deep mystery of it. And some people are going to want to like get into the symbology of it. And some people are going to mix and match all those things. It's a Venn diagram, right? Like, where do those things overlap for you? But my path with tarot has always been a combination of loving to learn the book knowledge, but then expanding that, like letting it explode outward into intuitive exploration. That's where I shine in my practice. So that's where I want to take things. Like that's the path in my head of where things are going. But I need to build the building blocks first. There needs to be enough of a foundation to build confidence that you can go off road. Like you need to have enough of a road that you know where your main path is if you stray too far, you know, like a compass in a way. I'm full of analogies. It's great.
But like, you know, even sort of bringing it back to your book, like I think you because you mentioned, you know, the sort of the you know, the different sort of types, and even connecting it with, you know, self-help and self-worth and you know, and all of those things. That is a pretty good leeway into, you know, the world of spirituality, and you know, your book being that sort of doorway, so to speak, into that, right? Even the way that you've laid out the book, when, you know, like the chapters are the major arcana, right? So and that is definitely probably one of the I would say more efficient, down-to-earth ways to even approach the idea of that and getting into it, right? Because you're taking it from that, you know, bettering yourself approach to, and then, you know, once you're getting it in, once you're in it, you can then explore and go wherever, right? And that's
the idea.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
like, I always pictured the book kind of like, that's why there's a labyrinth on the cover, because I always pictured it like I didn't always, when it started to take shape, that's when I started to picture it like a labyrinth walk, which if you've never done one, or if somebody watching hasn't done one, like you kind of spiral around this path until you end up at the center, and then you spiral back outward again. But it's sometimes you're back and forth into the same spot, right? But you're just a little bit further along each time you spiral back to the same spot. And then eventually you work your way back out again. But really you're traversing very similar places. You've got a slightly different perspective each time. That's what a labyrinth is. And what I really love is that when you get to the center, when you've kind of gone inward, you get to the center. And then from there, you can kind of just pause and breathe for a second. And then you can start to work your way back out. And to me, that's what the self-worth path kind of became for me, was you kind of go deeper and deeper into yourself. You kind of uncover all of these different layers of you, and you befriend, or at least get comfortable, or at least acknowledge, you know, some of those layers of yourself. And then when you get to the very center and the truth of who you are, you then learn to start expanding that outward in how you deal with other people in your relationships, how you create boundaries, how you know, advocate for yourself with others, how you start to take up space in the world, and all the ways that like that inward journey begins to manifest outward as you work your way back out of the labyrinth of the self-worth path. You begin to like see how the work you do internally affects everything else in your world, and how you interact with everybody else in your world. And that's the point, right? Is that you get to go inward, and then you get to go back outward and start to project that away from yourself more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, in the most profound way, and I'm listening to you, and it's funny because as you talk about the labyrinth, I'm just totally like,
in your mind, you're like walking it, right?
I'm walking the labyrinth as we're talking, right? And I'm just like, and it's so amazing. Like, it's just,
I'm a visual thinker, so I like pictures in my head for things to help describe them.
Me too. So like that's awesome. And I mean, like, just like the book cover, everything is just so simple, right? And it's just but it's a simple book that isn't so simple on the inside.
No, I think it surprises people.
But because
it kind of kicks your ass a little bit, right?
Yeah, but it's also simple in the way that it's giving you the information. It's giving you the information in a very approachable, calming, easy peasy way. And I really like that. And you know, and it makes it easy to read too, not, you know, like this sort of boring academic book, fall asleep kind of way. So
oh good. I definitely don't want to be putting people to sleep. That was not the goal.
No. You know, and that's great, but you know, maybe a unicorn somewhere in the corner would have been nice too, you know.
It's so funny because it's really, when you look at the cover, it's not something I would have gone, oh, that's totally like a Lisa book, but it is. It's so hard to describe because the bubbly like unicorns and rainbows and like Hello Kitty and like that side of me is because of that. It's because of going through that. And that is it was a heavy journey. It wasn't, always easy breezy and play and like, but I couldn't get to that place without having gone through all of that, without having worked through all of those steps and continuing to work them pretty much every day of my life forever until I die. I would not be able to do all that other stuff or step into those other places. So it's connected, but it's also in a way feels kind of separate. I don't know how to describe it. It's not separate, but it's like the foundation. Again, I can come back to that term, but it's kind of like that's the foundation that I can build all my sparkly unicorn castles on, you know?
Yeah. You did such an amazing job with this book, honestly. Like it's
11/11.
Oh,
well, here it's 11/11.
Yeah, for me it's 2/11, but
11/11 on 11/11.
Yeah,
yeah.
I told you we're meeting.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah, so that yeah. Anyways, but yeah, so that it just sort of brings around and for me, like the fact that like when I realized that we were meeting in the portal, so to speak, I'm like, see, it's meant to be. It's a magical thing. Like, yeah, right. Like here I am. I'm actually going to be doing, an interview with a person that I truly admire, that I am truly inspired by, and that makes me happy, and I'm doing it, for something that manifested because of my inspiration, which is you. So
it's like Inception.
What's that?
I said it's like Inception.
Yeah, so it's just like, it's just all coming together, and it's just in this really magical way. And this was, truly amazing. And I am so happy that, I finally, allowed this to sort of happen and not overthink it the way, like, as I, was mentioning earlier. And, it just, and it's very organic. And I just, I genuinely enjoy talking to you. I enjoy, being on your lives and having that, that opportunity to participate and, even be in the community that you built. Like you built, such an amazing community that I can only inspire that I can, eventually arise to do the same thing.
You're such a bright light in our community, and it's so lovely to have you be a part of it all. You bring a lot of joy with you wherever you go.
Well, thank you. I try, but it does help. It helps when, where you're going or where you're bringing the joy it's already there, and you can just partake and, so thank you for creating such, like I said, amazing community, amazing, things that you've been, doing with the book, with, your series, the various series that you've had, and even, your, the teachings with, Tarot with Training Wheels and Tarot Bootcamp. And I can't wait to see what more that you have coming. I'm
always cooking something.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to this, like, as nerdy as it is, but the cardstock thing, like, right. Like, as I'm, getting more into tarot and stuff like that. And then the bonus is that you have your lovely wife, Peggy, who makes tarot bags. And I'm probably one of the number one fans out there of her stuff too. And, besides you, of course. And so it's all good. It's just and I'm getting all the feels, and my inner child, and she's like, yes, I love this family. So
good. That's good. Thank you so much for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really was. And like I said, I can't wait to see, what more you have coming. And, it's truly a pleasure being a part of it. So thank you so much for what you've done. And,
you're welcome.
And I hope that you will, in your words, continue to let, your inner magic shine. So
thank you.
I know it's not said exactly the same way, but that's
okay. You said it your way. That's better.
Yeah, so thank you so much, and continue to let the magic shine from your inside out.
I will.